Okay, good afternoon, good evening. Uh, we are just waiting for some time so that people come live. If we have good number of people, then we will start inviting. Today we have a great, well experienced scaffolding expert from US, and he will be guiding us on scaffolding planks, or we call them scaffold board. And I hope it will be a fantastic session. And we are waiting for some of the people so that once we have a good number of people, we can start session. I would appreciate if you can share this link with other friends so that the people who are not able to watch us, they will be benefited. I'm sure today's topic is very interesting and full of knowledge. So everybody knows that we are not the experts. We are the HSE professionals. And what we are looking for the basic knowledge about the scaffolding. We have experts available, and those are the one who will who will be the one who will take care about the scaffolding. But we, being an HSE, ensure that scaffoldings are properly done, they are well inspected, the inspections are properly done. So without wasting our time, let's move to the session. As you know, my name is Mahmood Soomro, and I have been doing these live sessions very frequently before, but due to the job nature and busy schedule, I was not able to do. So we are again starting. So without delaying, I would like to thank everyone who's watching us on live HSE Talk with Mahmood Soomro. Now I'm going to invite our guest and the speaker, Mr. Steve Heiner, the General Manager, Scaffolding Training Institute, USA, my mentor, my guide, my friend, and a very charming personality. So here we go, our friend Steve Heiner. Hi, Steve. Welcome on board, and thank you very much for your time. Please introduce yourself and let's
Thank you very much,
start.
Qadir. Okay, very good. Well, good morning, everybody from the United States, and good evening from the Middle East. My name is Steve Heiner, and I'm with the Scaffold Training Institute. I've been over to the Middle East many, many times and have trained maybe even a lot of people that are listening to this this cast this morning. But I would like to go through a topic on wood planks today. Actually, the topic is when good planks turn to bad. Okay. Sometimes we take our walking or working surfaces for granted out on the job sites. And it's very, very important that we maintain wood plank so that it's in good serviceable condition for the people that are using the scaffold to work off of. Sometimes we spend a lot of money on these planks, and if they're not taken care of, they can become damaged, weakened to a point that they cannot be used on a scaffold. They will break and eventually could hurt somebody, or in some cases even kill them, depending on how far they were to fall. So before I get started on the maintenance of plank or looking at specific things and criteria on the wood plank, I'd kind of like to start from the beginning and where the regulations that pertain to wood planks falls or comes under in our OSHA rules and regulations over here in the United States. So wood plank actually is in subpart L, 1926 scaffolding, and it actually occurs in the appendix A, the non-mandatory appendix in the OSHA regulations. And I've actually got a copy of it right here. So many of you that have taken the class could see this is where we started right here with wood planking. So just to kind of get started off with this again, I'd like to kind of run through what OSHA says about using wood plank and the established kind of criteria for wood planking. So it says here under Appendix A, solid sawn wood used as scaffold planks shall be selected for such use following the grading rules established by, number one, a recognized lumber grading association, or two, by an independent lumber grading inspection agency. It says such planks, these planks, have to be identified by a what we call a grade stamp of such association or agency. So I've got a couple of stamps here from the United States, and these are what these stamps look like. This one right here is one more from the west coast of the United States. This says the plank shall be select structural. It does say on here scaffold plank, that it's the species of Doug fir, and this was actually a stamp from the West Coast Lumber Inspection Bureau. Now this stamp over here, this one right here, is from the Southern Pine Inspection Bureau. Southern pine is called a dense industrial 65 grade scaffold plank, and it will say scaffold plank on it. Now, it does say in the regulations that if it is a solid sawn piece of lumber, that is a what we call a full thickness piece of lumber. It doesn't necessarily have to have a stamp on it because it'll meet the criteria for solid sawn plank used for people to stand on in a flat position. So that is where the regulations really fall under in the regulations, and you can find them pretty readily. You can go out and Google them if you don't have one of my manuals or one of STI's manuals. So the grading criteria actually is established by the sawmill that actually saws the planks into a scaffold plank. The tree has to, or the fibers of the tree, which is mostly the inner part of the tree, has to be able to withstand a certain amount of pounds per square inch of force being put down on it, or by people or materials. So it has to be graded for such use for scaffolding. That means you can't just run down to the lumber yard and grab a 2x10. It might not meet the rating that's established that for people to stand on that plank. Okay, so the next thing that comes is once we buy the planks and we start using them out in the field, many things can happen to a wood plank. So I've got some information here I'd like to share with you. This actually comes from one of the sawmills that saws scaffold grade lumber, and it specifically talks about damages and what to look for and how to determine whether the good plank that you bought a year ago is now still in good condition for a person to stand on. So let me just kind of read through some of this real quick. It says here, the scaffold plank takes many forms in the United States and across the world. Each area of the United States is unique, and and a region's environment can drastically change the expected life of a wood plank. In general, wet and very humid environments decrease the shelf life of wood scaffold plank. Both solid wood and laminated veneer lumber, what we call laminated veneer lumber. Now, a laminated veneer plank is a manufactured plank made in a manufacturing facility. And basically, it looks like a large, thick piece of plywood. So what they do is they take laminates, they lay them crossways, they use glues, and then they smash them together in a big hydraulic press, and they actually make a laminated plank. This is called a manufactured plank. But today, I really want to talk more specifically about solid sawn lumber from trees. Okay, so it says here, these types of planks are susceptible to wet conditions, with both types experiencing rot, and with the LVL, or the laminated veneer, at risk of delamination. So the laminated veneers, once it gets wet or water gets into it, can actually delaminate the laminates that make up that wood. So it says here, do you know what to look for to determine if your scaffold plank is in reasonable working condition? It's when wood scaffold plank comes back to the yard, these guidelines will help determine if the plank is ready for the next job or if it needs to be retired from service. So plank damage and its many forms. Like all wood products and plant fiber products, scaffold plank is subject to decay and damage. Water is the #1 enemy of plank. Boards that do not dry properly are at the risk of rotting. Telltale signs of rot include discoloration and boards that are lighter in weight than normal. So if you go out and you pick a board up and it's kind of heavy, that would probably be in good shape if there's nothing else wrong with it. However, when water infiltrates into the fibers of the wood, it starts pulling apart. And a lot of times you can't even see it because it really rots from the inside out. So if you pick up a board that might be lighter, that's probably a telltale sign that board fibers are starting to rot and give way. So it says a lightweight board with a normal looking exterior may include rot that is incurred inside the wood fibers of the scaffold board. Even chemical exposure can also result in board rot, including oxidizing acids and caustic mixtures like mortar and concrete. So even in the chemical plants and the refineries that you guys work in, this stuff infiltrates into the board and it starts rotting the boards, the fibers of the plank. Sun exposure and significant temperature swings may cause wood scaffold to crack, split, and warp. Many of the manufacturers, what they do in some boards, they install a twisted steel screw perpendicular to the board near the face and the ends of the wood scaffold plank to reduce the risks of it cupping. Now, I'm going to show you some pictures here of warping, cupping, things like that in just a second. It says here, and it also helps splitting on the ends of the boards as well. Finally, board damage may also be caused by misuse, referring to as caused damage. This is stuff that we cause on the board, including unloading and loading with forklifts, poor handling, Cause damage often translates into boards being split and fibers tear at the board surfaces. I would even say in some cases, when we lay boards out on job sites, we throw them down on the ground. This causes damage. When we run over them with forklifts, this causes damage that can be very detrimental to the board itself. Now, when we talk about visual inspections of the boards and choosing good boards versus bad boards, after each job, a visual inspection of the wood boards is required. A lot of times we don't do these on job sites. We take this step for granted. So it's very important then that the boards are to be inspected before we use them, or when they come off the job site, they come back to the yard. We should actually visually inspect each one of these boards to make sure that they're still in good shape for the next job that we're going to send them out on. Planks should actually be inspected by a qualified or a competent person, okay? I'm going to talk about the competent person again here in a minute, and a qualified person as well. OSHA defines a qualified person. This is the qualified person, if you remember from our teachings. A qualified person is someone in possession of a recognized degree, a certificate, a professional standing, or who by extensive knowledge, training, and experience has successfully demonstrated the ability to solve or resolve problems relating to the subject matter, the work, or the project. So that is what we would call the definition of a qualified person. Now, the competent person, the definition of a competent person is an individual capable of identifying identifying existing and predictable hazards in their surroundings, and who has the authority to make prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. So the competent person, actually, there's two parts to being a competent person. You have to be capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards, and you also have to have the authorization to take prompt measures to eliminate those hazards. So a competent person's job out there on the job site is a very, very important one. So a visual inspection of a board involves looking for a few key things. These include split ends or ends that are split, warping of the board, narrow face splits, face breaks, saw cuts, notching, drilled holes, dents, depressions in the plank, and also rotting of the board. Now, if you guys will remember, if you were in the class, or one of the classes that I taught over there, we talked about visual testing, and this is one of the pages from our book here, and it talks about visual testing right here up at the top. Visual testing. It talks about all the rings of the board. However, we don't really need to be necessarily concerned with how many rings are in the wood fibers themselves. We're looking at more for the stamp, and just to make sure that it's a scaffold grade plank. Knots, unsound knots. If they're coming out of the board, that creates weak spots in the plank. I'm trying to get this moved over here so everybody can see it. We've got surface checks. We'll talk about them. I got some pictures here in a minute. Through checks. I've got a notice that just came up on my screen.
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. This is just if anybody will ask us the question in the bill. Okay. Sorry to bother you.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I was wondering if maybe I could get rid of it. And then over here we have what we call through checks. These are limited splits in the boards. And then we also went through the splits themselves. Okay. OSHA says that a maximum width is 1/8 of an inch, or I think that's 0.32 centimeters. Yep, 0.32 centimeters. And then the maximum length of a split is 2.54 centimeters, or 10 inches if you want to use an imperial number. Then underneath that, we went through the splits, ring shake splits. And then here's the real important parts of a board. Sunlight, water, chemicals cause all these. Bowing of the plank, crooking of the plank. Underneath that, we have what we call cupping of the plank. That's when the plank cups like this. This is pretty prominent in planks that are used for long, long periods of time. And then even what we call twisting in a plank. This is when the board twists and becomes unstable to be set up on the scaffold. So those are many, many different ways that a plank can become to a point where it needs to be taken actually off the scaffold and discarded or gotten rid of. Okay, so let's talk about end splits first, and what you would be looking for an end split. Now, what I did is I made some copies of these end splits, but first let me go through what an end split is. An end split are the separation of the wood through the piece of the opposite surface due to the tearing apart of the wood cells. End splits are the result of repeated wet and dry cycles and handling abuse. An end split does not necessarily weaken the scaffold plank. However, end splits with length less than or equal to the plank width are repairable. An end split can be repaired using banding to keep the split from growing. Alternatively, a board may be cut back to eliminate the split. I prefer that method than repairing the plank, to be honest with you. I think if you start getting an end split in the end of the board, the very end of the board, we should just cut that off. Alternatively, a board may be cracked or cut back to eliminate the split. If a board is deemed non-repairable, it should be removed from service. Only trimmed boards that carry the designation stamp provided by the authorized lumber grader, such as the DI 65 stamp or from the West Coast, the Select Structural stamp, may maintain that designation. Okay, so here's a picture of an end split. Let's see if I can. I put end split here. So we have got, if I can get that a little bit closer there, in this board, you can see the end split from the end of the plank, right over here, right there. It's split from the ends of the planks. See all these splits right here? These are all end splits. All right. All right. Here's another picture of an end split. Maybe this is a little bit better one. So here's an end split from the end of the board right here. So these are good telltales that the board is starting to fail. Most of the time, water and sun, heat make these happen. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is called warping. Warping is any deviation from a true or plane surface. Different types of warpings include bowing, crooking, cupping, and twisting. And that's just what I showed you on a couple of the other sheets over there. Bowing, crooking, cupping, and twisting. Now, bowing is any deviation flatwise and straight line drawn end to end. Crooking is a deviation edgewise, where the edge of the plank goes like this. This is called crooking. From a straight line drawn end to end. Cupping is any deviation in the face of the plank from a straight line drawn edge to edge. So that's where it cups like this. And then twisting is any deviation, flatwise or a combination of flatwise and edgewise in the form of a curl or a spiral. So it's twisting like this, or both. It's bowing, cupping, and twisting. So a qualified person will be able to identify these issues frequently. Allowing the plank to dry more thoroughly can help correct these misalignments, especially in the case of cupping. When the issue exists and present a potential tripping hazard, the plank must be removed from service. Listen, you don't want these things sitting on the scaffold creating tripping hazards. So we want to just remove them and get them off the scaffold. Now, when it comes to what we call narrow-faced splits, narrow-faced splits are open splits on the narrow face of the plank that may be caused by handling abuse, forklift damage, or overloading on the plank. Narrow face splits are likely to result in a board rot when exposed to the elements. Diagonal splits are likely to be accompanied by face breaks. It may be necessary to use thin, stiff probes to distinguish a split from a shallow weathering check. Planks with open splits on the narrow face should be removed from service. So let me see here. I've got narrow-faced splits right here. So here is a narrow face split. Now you might not be able to see this, but we also have some notching in this one as well. And let me just kind of show you this picture here. This is the narrow face of the plank, and this is where it splits. It runs the length of the plank, and you can see some of the delineation and some of the fibers coming apart. There's the notch right there. We'll talk about notches in a minute. Okay. Now, when it comes to face breaks, this is another thing that we want to be looking for on wood plank as well. A face break include a break on the wide face and are usually a result of overloading the plank. This results in a dangerous loss of strength. Any board with a face break must be removed from service. And I am not sure. I don't have a face break. No, I didn't do a face break, but you would be able to see that where the board is actually starting to crack this way. Okay, that's a break in the wood plank. Okay, face breaks. Let's talk about what we call saw kerfs. Saw kerf, S-A-W-K-E-R-F-S, saw kerfs. Basically, saw kerfs, also known as saw cuts, may be found on the face or through the edge of a plank. A saw kerf across the plank face effectively reduces the plank's thickness, which severely reduces the plank's strength. Saw kerfs can only be repaired by sawing off and eliminating the position of the saw kerf. And I've got a picture of a saw kerf here. This is actually where they take a saw blade and just run it straight across from one side of the plank to the other. And you can see, like, I'm trying to do this backwards here. Where am I at here? Right here, but on the edge of the plank here. It cuts down into the plank. So we'd really want to get rid of that. You want to make sure that that's cut off, make it go away. All right, notching in planks, drilling holes in planks, dents or depressions in the planks. Other plank damages include notches and holes. Some people may notch the end of the board to work around unique obstructions such as pipes. And I know that this is done quite often out in these plants. However, it really should not be done. You should not cut holes in planks. Some people may notch the end of them to get around obstructions. This reduces the effective width of the plank and therefore the plank's load carrying capacity, right? If you make the plank smaller, we really don't know what the plank can hold at that particular point when it's rated for either light duty, medium duty, or heavy duty ratings. So drilled holes can be found in planks for many reasons. You know, guys out there have to drill things. They drill holes in the planks. Listen, a hole in a plank is a weak spot in the plank. Really, they should be eliminated as soon as possible. We should need to make them go away. Now, dents and depressions can be caused by boards falling or heavy objects falling on the plank. So even, I'll tell you what, even forklifts that run over the planks out on the job sites can cause dents and depressions as well. So we want to make sure that these types of planks that are dented or depressed to a certain point where you can actually visually see that, you'd probably want to eliminate that plank as well, because it's ruined the fibers of the plank and it could actually break. So I would probably stay away from dents and depressions as well. The last thing that I want to talk about on wood planking is decay or rot, okay? So it says here, all wood-based scaffold planks are susceptible to decay and rot. Rot may occur because water exposure, chemical spillage, or insects even attack the planks as well. Wood knots can be sources of rot. Beware of loose or broken wood knots. This will decrease the board's effective width and reduce the plank's load carrying capacity, similar to notching or drilled holes. Do not use a scaffold plank on any scaffold that was previously used as a walkboard across wet, muddy ground or as a sill for scaffolding. So we use wood planks for mud sills. You never want to reuse that plank for a man to stand on. It gets the mud, the dirt, the water gets pushed into the fibers of the plank, and eventually it will decay and it will rot. So, so look for decay and rot. I've actually got one with, this has got end splits and decay. So here is the plank that shows decay. The wood is just starting to delaminate, or the fibers are starting to rot away. Also, you can see there's actually a notch in the very, very end of the plank as well, which we'd want to get rid of. And here's another picture of decay, water damage, and what we call gouging on a wood plank. There's many, they're just laying there. I can't see around it, but there's some decay right there. That is a horrible plank. Okay, so so we always want to be prepared for the next job or the next season. These guidelines will help you evaluate your scaffold plank inventory. These guidelines, however, are not inclusive and should not supplant or replace or other additional safety or precautionary measures. Be sure to contact a qualified wood specialist with questions or concern. We just want to make sure that these boards are in good shape for people to walk on. And like I said before in the very beginning, wood planks are something that we reuse over and over and over again until they fail. So we want to do a very, very good job of properly storing your planks, visually inspecting the planks, keeping them out of the weather as much as we possibly can. to make sure that they're going to be in good shape the next time that we want to use them. Okay? So, that is how to visually inspect a wood plank and what you would be looking for to make sure that they're in good serviceable condition for the next job. Here is a nice picture of some good planks. I know they're not all going to look as brand new as these out there, but you want to keep them in as best shape that you possibly can. Okay? The last thing that you would want to really look for on wood planks as well are the spans of them. We want to make sure that we're not spanning the plank beyond the span of the plank according to a light duty load rating, a medium duty load rating, and a heavy duty load rating. Anytime that a plank goes beyond that load rating, okay, because we put lots of stuff on platforms up in the air when we're stocking them, brick masons, refractory, large objects we set on wood planks. Sometimes we push them to their limits of the fibers. And it says in the OSHA regulation, I believe it's under 1926 451F15 in the OSHA standard, that anytime a plank bends, or what we call deflects from one point to the other, if it deflects more than 1/60th of the span, that board needs to be removed from service. Okay? All right, there you go. There's what you want to be looking for to make sure that the boards are in good serviceable condition. Okay? Very good. Does anybody have any questions they might want to ask me before we end?
Steve,
Yes, sir.
and it's fantastic flow, and I don't wanted to interrupt you. Due to that, I just kept out from the screen, and I
Okay.
really want to thank you for the consistency and referring to each and every standard. And you gave us a really clear examples of split, wrap, and all other types of damages, the runover of forklifts, which is common in our construction industry. And you said a couple of good
Yes,
things
it
like
is.
twisted. You said twisting of the boards is also one of the issue when we are working in the construction industry. And sometimes the whole hoop irons are also damaged. So where we put the identification
Sure.
marks for
Yes.
planks. Now, as people will ask some
Good.
question, I just want to take the advantage. Like me, I'm an HSC professional, and the points which you shared with us with regards to the scaffold boards, can you give us quick tips as an HSC? What things should I see and I should approach to the competent scaffolding supervisor or inspector to correct or remove the plank? Just a quick tips as a visual inspection.
So really, as just some quick tips. Okay, when you're visually inspecting the boards, if the guys are walking on them, if they're deflecting more than some of the other ones that the guys are working on or walking on, that's kind of a red flag that particular board is starting to fail. The fibers of the plank are pulling apart, they're failing, and it's just kind of a quick, good indication of whether or not that plank's gonna make it any longer. The color of the boards, long longitudinal crack lines in the boards. You know, when I've been over there, we go out to the job sites. And instead of doing our building of scaffold, we go out and we look at job sites, and we do an inspection of the scaffolding and the boards and what have you. And I see quite often over there, these boards that are used for long periods of times, they have long crack lines from one end of the board to the other on the face of the plank. You just want to look at the ends of them and look at how deep they are. Okay, we want to make sure that they're not more than what was it, 0.34 centimeters deep. These can start becoming a point where they could actually crack and break under people's feet. And then of course, if you look at a plank, you could tell that it's been wet, that maybe it's even spongy. We've got some boards here in the yard that I just took off some of our scaffolds because here in Houston, we have a lot of rain. In fact, it's raining today as well. But over time, the sun and the wetness just destroy these planks. And we don't even work off of some of them. They're just on some of the scaffolds for visual inspection out there.
Yeah.
We have to take them off and just get rid of them because of the sun and the rain, the wet. So there's just a few little tips to kind of visually look at.
There's a one question from one of our colleagues. He's asking, does doubling the layer of planks can compensate for span? Doubling the layer of planks?
No, doubling them up. Are you talking about doubling them up like this?
Yes.
Is that what he asked? Doubling them
he's
up?
saying,
Okay.
Can I rephrase?
If
Does doubling the layer of planks can compensate for span?
In some cases, yes. When you connect the two planks together, when you secure them together, and what I mean by that is by nailing them together or screwing them together to form like a beam, okay? It will help be able to put more load on it. Now, the other side of this fence is if you're just going to lay one plank on top of the other, then the answer is no. It doesn't help the span and the load rating on the plank because they are still two independent planks from one another. They still deflect and bow, and they're independent of one another. So
now,
did you understand what I was saying there?
Now I have some questions.
Yes.
Now,
good.
These scaffold planks are used as a boards, planks, sole boards, toe boards. So, do we need to consider some additional measures?
Can they be used as toe boards?
Say again, sir. Say again.
No, not really. No, toe boards are, toe boards in themselves are just there to keep things from falling off the scaffold. So the toe board only really has to be able to withstand a force applied to it of about 50 pounds, which is really not that much in the scheme of things. I know how you use scaffold planks as toe boards. I personally like that. It gives us a little more height on the toe board, but the strength of it is more than enough for a toe board.
Okay. And Steve, I really want to thank you for the marvelous session. I have done a couple of sessions in near future, means near past. And the way you demonstrate is more practical approach. And I, on behalf of all the team, all the audiences, would like to thank for your time. And we look forward your same cooperation in future. And going to see you soon after this pandemic situation back in UAE with a cup of tea.
Very good. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for inviting me here. It's my pleasure to help train and help educate people out in the field to make sure that what they're doing is the correct way to do things. We always want to make sure that any of our scaffolds that we work off of are hazard-free, that they're capable of holding the load, and that, of course, the planks are strong enough to carry us and all the material that we need safely while we're getting our jobs done. So thank you for inviting me. I really, really appreciate this. I'd like to do this again sometime, pick another topic, and we'll do some more education.
Thank you, Steve. Once again, bundle of thanks. So now I would like to go back to the audience, and I want to salute you for your time.
Thank you very
Stay
much.
there.
Thank you.
Take care. Take care. So, gentlemen, this was today's session. I hope every one of you have joined it. And now, see you again in our session. Inshallah, we are going to have a next section very soon, and you will find it in our Facebook live session, and poster will be developed. Again, if you don't have any question, we are going to sign out. I think we don't have any question. Okay. Okay, Steve, thank you very much. So now we are signing off, and it was a great session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good. We'll talk soon. Talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, see you soon on with other topic. I would like to thank everyone who participated and joined our session and shared with other friends. Hopefully, see you soon with a new session. Please join my Facebook page and my Facebook profile, means direct LinkedIn, Facebook profile, so that we can have other sessions together. Take care. Allah Hafiz.